How you doing, people? This is the last Rubin Report of 2014. I'm Dave Rubin, and I have an incredibly esteemed panel with me. We have the Yoda of the TYT network, Steve O, and the Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, come on.
Of TYT. I almost said Chewbacca, but
Can we meet halfway and call me an Ewok?
we have the
They're at least
Ewok leader,
adorable.
the Ewok rebel leader, Malcolm Fleschner. We've got a lot to get to, so let's get right to it. So the year is ending, in case you didn't know that. Yeah, we only got a couple hours left. And Gallup did a poll on the most admired men of 2014, so let's take a look. All right, a lot of political people here. Barack Obama, number one. Pope Francis, number two. Bill Clinton, Billy Graham, George W. Bush, Ben Carson. I thought that one was kind of interesting. Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, Bill O'Reilly, Benjamin Netanyahu. And we were going to just leave it at 10, but then 11 snuck in Vladimir Putin. So that one. So let's start with Putin. I kind of think this is a little like there's people that actually respect what a nutbag he is. Like he doesn't give a fuck about anything.
Well, he
so
gets a lot of press on Fox. They talk about how they like Putin a lot. I mean, not just to
They like Putin on Fox?
Well, to contrast him with Barack Obama, who's such a big wussy, but
Right.
Putin's a strong man. They admire that. I mean, they're simple-minded. They appreciate an authority figure who is authoritative, and that he gives them that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what the policies
There's
are.
something that appeals to all of our id, right, about Putin.
Right.
He's strong, he's a little bit crazy, and he has this philosophy. I see, I like, I take. He just takes stuff.
Yeah, and he just takes
He
it,
just takes
literally.
it, right? He took Robert Kraft's Super Bowl ring. He took Crimea.
Yeah.
And I heard that he took some oligarch's house on the outside of London.
Wait, he took Robert Kraft's Super Bowl ring?
Yeah.
How did he do that?
Well, Robert Kraft was in Russia visiting, and Putin saw his ring. He's like, I like your ring. And he's like, yeah, this is my Super Bowl ring. Take a look at it. He goes, yeah, I like it. And he just took it. And Robert Kraft was like, can I have that back?
Yeah.
And one of the security guys were like, no. This is your gift to Mr. Putin.
Wow.
And-
So Putin has a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
That is something.
Yeah.
That is something. Yeah, so I agree. It is the kind of. Let's go back to the list for just a second there. So Obama number one, look, certain people. So Obama number one, Francis number two. Those are the big shots. What do you like there, Malcolm?
Billy Graham
Yeah.
is like, I mean, he's hanging on.
Is he
Good for him.
like-
I mean, he's been apparently in the top 10 off and on for the past 75 years.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, are they going back to the same people every year? Because nobody under 85 is saying Billy Graham or even knows who Billy Graham is, but that he keeps making it on the list is admirable in some ways, I
Right.
guess.
So a lot of it's just name recognition, obviously,
Yeah.
because you're just picking names. What do you think of George W. Bush? I know you're a big fan of George W. Bush and all his policies.
It's so, this list is odd.
I mean, this is Gallup.
This
This is the Gallup people.
I get it. It has to be famous people,
Right.
right? I mean, the guy who does some great work in your local neighborhood, he won't be on this list. I get it. But how is George Bush even relevant anymore? He's been out of office for 8 years or
This is
6
not-
years.
Right, like what's to admire about him
Yeah.
at this
But it's
point?
not. It's what it really is a.
It's an
because
anti-Obama position,
No,
right?
no. It's an open-ended question where they don't give you a list of possibilities. They make you come up with it yourself. And the average American, it's not
Right,
the
you
most
just-
admired list. It's more like name somebody famous besides Kim Kardashian, because you can't say her. So
Yeah.
it's like, and a lot of people probably still think George Bush is president. I mean, they're
Right.
they're not narrowing down the field not only of the people you can select, but
You're
the people
right,
they're asking.
And that's really sad.
That is sad. So to that point, though, why is it that we admire politicians? After being in the news biz for a year and a half or 2 years now, I have so little regard for politicians. Never think they're telling the truth. All the stuff that we all know. But why do people still? So it's just the recognition. I get
think it is, and
for
I
a
think-
poll like this. But in general, why do people think that politicians somehow?
I think we attribute to politicians and to our leaders the qualities that we wish they had, right? Because we want to believe that they are leading us and that we want to be optimistic about our future and our present state. So we attribute these qualities to them that we wish all leaders had, and that's why in every fictional account of anything, whether it's religion or it's a Hollywood movie, they possess these unbelievable human traits of strength and integrity and all of that in real life is rarely displayed.
Right. In real life, they're getting blowjobs in bathrooms, and what else are they doing?
Wait, that's something I could admire. Wait a minute.
On that note, Gallup also did the 2014 most admired women, so let's take a look at that list. Hillary Clinton, number one. Are we having Hillary fatigue yet? Oprah Winfrey, Malala, Condi Rice, Michelle Obama, Angelina Jolie, Sarah Palin, Princess Kate, Elizabeth Warren, Laura Bush. So again, very political heavy.
I mean, this list is sadder than the men's list, right? and it's because I guess there are more men who are famous for being, I don't know, I mean, not a Kim Kardashian type, but more of substance. But like Laura Bush?
Right, so George Bush was on the other one, but Laura Bush,
That's
Bush.
crazy.
So can you think of anything she did? She wanted kids to read, right? Wasn't that her thing?
Yeah.
Do we have any proof that the literacy rates went up or that she actually did anything even while she was there, much less 6 years later?
I don't think there's a lot of people investing time and effort to follow up on Laura Bush to make sure that she wasn't, you know.
Is Michelle Obama on that list?
Yeah, there are three.
Yeah.
There are three African American women on
throw
this
back
list.
to that for a
There are three
second.
black women on this list,
five.
which I think is pretty impressive.
But what do you guys make of Hillary? Because to me, it's like everyone is so over her already. Every time I read an article about her, you can actually see it now.
No,
the media is starting to turn on her, but they're going to come back. We have so much time.
No, that's we're living in our political bubble. Most people don't pay any attention to any of this shit.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't
You
even
think they're
know.
still
Most
feeling
people don't
it?
know that she was Secretary of State. They may think she already is president.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, with all the, I mean, most people are not. So they're just asking, name someone famous, and so they come up with
Hillary.
Hillary.
Has a lot of mind share in the sense that she's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's number one on this list, I mean, I get it. I mean, just like Obama being number one on the other list.
Right.
They're just the most
It's just
widely
names.
recognized people. And Hillary is known for being smart. Right? I mean, everyone thinks she's smart. No one thinks she's dumb. I mean, even if you hate her, you think she's smart. And that she's accomplished. So I get it. Okay. I mean, that's a much more reasonable thing to have on the list than, let's say, Laura Bush. But even Condi Rice, I mean, why is she on this list for 2014? If she was on the list, 6 years ago, I get it. But now, it just tells you how outdated everything is, and that once you become famous for any reason whatsoever, whether you're in politics or movies or whatever it is, you're just on this list forever.
Right.
So if they did this, so next year, Condi Rice will be on this list next year.
Right, 9 to 10 of those names are going to be the same one. So I guess the one that I know you guys are going to be happy about, so Elizabeth Warren being on there, that's actually a sign of something, right? Because
the one, you know who else was on the list? Who was number 3? Let's see the list. again.
Malala.
Those,
I know.
The people who say Malala, those are the ones I give credit to. That's impressive. They know Malala. I mean, I kind of get pissed off because she's like done more at 16 than I will ever accomplish in my entire life. But nevertheless, those are the people.
Well accomplished.
Oh yeah, I made it on the Rubin Report.
Yeah.
And that gives me a little bit of hope. I didn't really see any hope really on the men's list.
Yeah.
Ben Carson, Billy Graham, but Malala, that's great. I admire that.
Yeah, I mean,
I admire them.
I'm actually shocked that she's so high on the list.
Right.
I love it. But yeah, the other one on the list that's absurd is what's with Angelina Jolie and Princess Kate?
Right. Well, again, that's just purely what you're saying about name
seems
recognition.
so silly.
Angelina Jolie has a reputation as being a real humanitarian who
Yes.
dedicates a lot of time, and
Yes.
she's adopted half of the orphans in Africa, and that's something.
Right, and she got that double mastectomy, and she's a spokesperson for cancer, and yes, and she's a humanitarian, but still.
It's not like saying Jennifer Aniston. Not to take anything away from Jennifer Aniston, but
Yeah, she did not make the
Other
list.
than Brad Pitt.
other than Brad Pitt, which Angelina did take.
There you go. Wait, so last thought is just getting back to Elizabeth Warren for a
sorry.
second. Do you think she has any realistic chance in 2016? Do you think there's any chance that they? Yeah, you really
Yes,
think so?
I think there's
You don't think
always
she's
hope.
going to be like the Howard Dean, like she'll get everybody really excited, and then something will happen it'll just kind of disappear?
No, I think she has a lot of grassroots support, and it's interesting. Well, it'll be interesting to see how the establishment reacts to that.
Right.
Because her biggest threat is actually not even the Republicans; it's the establishment Democrats.
Right.
They're gonna destroy her.
Yeah.
So Clinton and that whole machinery will come after her if she decides to run. So it's really her decision as to whether she wants to fight that battle versus the Clintons and perhaps be a total outcast in the Democratic Party establishment, or whether she wants to fight that and be a champion of the people. I hope she chooses the latter. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, let's move on. The 2014 Consumer Satisfaction Index came out, where they rank how people feel about certain companies and the value of their services. And believe it or not, you know what two companies people hate the most? Yeah, Time Warner and Comcast. And of course, Time Warner and Comcast are actually merging to become one more evil corporation. So I thought to start here, I know that you hate Time Warner. You've gone on Twitter rants about Time Warner. So let's just start with Time Warner.
Yeah, this is when I wish corporations were in fact people, so I could kill them.
So they're not people.
Yeah, because I would like to murder Time Warner.
Okay,
I would. It is such a bad company in terms of service, their lack of respect for the customers, and the way they treat people. I mean, the fact that you stay at your house all day, you did like take a day off from work.
Yeah, literally all day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Then they don't even fucking show up, and I was so angry. And people are gonna say, well, why do you need Time Warner? You should detach from. It's not for my television. It's for my internet.
Yeah.
I need internet access, and where I live in LA, they are literally the only choice I have. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
Even if I want to pay $50,000, I can't get another choice. This is it.
Yeah.
So the fact that cable companies are not treated as a utility is insanity. They should be deemed a utility, and we move on, because there's no way that you can compete against Time Warner. I mean, the idea of a free market is that, if Dave Rubin opens up a Indian restaurant, and then Malcolm opens one up, and I open one up, the one that has
I don't love Indian food, just for the record.
Right.
But, all right.
But the one that does the best is presumably the one that has the best food for the best price. Well, you don't have that kind of competition. There is no such free market for a massive utility like the water company, the electric company, and the cable company. And pretending the cable companies are not a utility is just ridiculous.
Right. So to your point, now Time Warner is actually merging with Comcast.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot worse.
Well, I think it's sort of like when you have two people like a couple and they fight all the time and they're both obnoxious and they never get along and it's awful, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna solve all this by getting married. We'll get married, and that's what we got with Comcast and Time Warner. Is that the question is, will they be as awful as Time Warner or as awful as Comcast? But
no, they're going to be actually even worse.
But yeah, they'll be worse.
Yeah.
But your point is about the monopoly is, what is their incentive to provide good customer service? And in the article that your producer forwarded to us, they mentioned that Comcast, they're making some steps. One of the things they're doing is they hired someone to come in and teach them how not to constantly fuck over your customers. I'm just wondering, looking at that meeting, and the guy's got, he's doing a slideshow for them. He's like, okay, so when the customer calls, you're going to want to pick up that phone.
Yeah.
We don't just keep running that loop of your call is important to us, please stay holding on the line. Over and over again. You're going to want someone on the other end
to actually,
and then when they express what their problem is to you, you're going to want to try to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And the executives feverishly. Now wait. What did you say about solve? What was that? What was that word?
Wait, can you just explain to me, why is it that every time you call these guys, you have to punch in your phone number, right? You have to actually tap, press the buttons to get it in, and then the second they get on the phone with you, they ask for your phone number again. Why is that? Explain that to me, Steve-O.
There's no explanation.
There's no explanation.
I'm amazed when I call some 800 number or some customer service number and a human says hello.
It's incredible.
I'm like, what? Are you a real person?
Yeah. But don't the humans start sounding like robots, actually? Have you noticed that, too?
Yeah, it's really amazing. So back to the merger issue.
Yeah.
This is a real problem because there's already regional monopolies by these cable companies, but now they want to create a national monopoly. And they've hired 40 lobbying firms. Not 40 human beings, but 40 different lobbying firms to push all the Congress people and all the influencers in Washington to approve this deal. If this is not a monopoly, then what is?
Steve's point, I think, is that they're job creators, and that this merger is creating a lot of work.
Right.
So
if we allow this merger to go through, we should just take all of our laws against monopolies and just throw them away.
Which we've pretty much done already. But so is this one of the things where Obama kind of failed here, because he said he was for net neutrality, but then he appointed a guy that was the head of the FCC who was a lobbyist for the telecom industry. And then just a couple weeks ago, I think it was the day after the election, he again doubled down and said, I'm for net neutrality. But at the same time, he's appointing people that are not. So we have these companies coming together, and to me, the bigger risk still is net neutrality, which the jury is out on, which could really screw us.
Yeah, thanks for
that's not even a question.
Thank you for that encouraging note of optimism for the new year, Dave.
Yeah. You got anything? Give me some hope. I mean,
there is no hope.
For the online people, really.
There's no hope. Net neutrality is gone. It's going to be gone. I mean, it's just a matter of time and how they couch it. It's going to be gone.
All right. Well, I wish we could have ended that one a slightly more inspirational. Give me something here, Malcolm. Something slightly more. Well, you know what? You're watching this now, and they haven't taken it down, have they? Have they?
But we are recording it on December 31st.
Comment
so
right down below. you guys know about the Middle East? It's like Middle Earth, but more violent. So Hamas, which is in charge of the Gaza Strip, they were going to have a little peace thing. The Israelis and the Palestinians were going to get together, send 37 kids from Gaza to Israel, to the West Bank. They were going to go to a zoo, I think, in Jerusalem, and it was just going to be a little thing for kids to get together and talk and see other people, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, Hamas not that into it. We've got a quote from their spokesman. Hamas spokesman Eyad Bozoum said the decision was made to protect the culture of our children and our people from normalizing relations with Israel. He said Hamas would make sure a trip will never happen again. All right, so I don't want to get into a big debate about the Middle East. Let's not do that right this second. But what I thought was interesting about this is, first off, these type of stories don't get much play. We only talk about it when there's bombing and things like that. But isn't this kind of stuff more important? Because all the leaders now are going to die off eventually, right? 20, 30 years, they're all going to be gone. It's the next generation that has to have some feeling of peace. So if we can't even get kids to go to a zoo together, I guess my question is the Middle East just perpetually screwed?
Well, I want to say thank you for bringing up this topic, because one of my New Year's resolutions for 2014 was to solve the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and it's December 31st, so I got to get to it.
Let's get to it.
And I think, in some ways, I think this is encouraging because they're even doing this.
But they're not doing it.
Well, no, there's the effort, the attempt to do it,
right.
And that if initially there was approval from whoever from Hamas to allow this to happen, and then it got rejected when the day of it. So what I think that points out to me is something that most people don't acknowledge about Hamas, which is that, like any political party, there are more moderate elements. And I mean, we like to think of Hamas, we think they're all just death to Israel. That's just they all have that tattooed on their arm or something. But like any political party, there are more moderates, and there are some who obviously, when this was initially approved, who thought this was a good idea. They lost this battle, but at least it indicates that there are people within Hamas or in the West Bank, in Gaza, who want to promote person-to-person connections between the people, the children of Gaza and children of Israel. So while this one, it's disappointing, and it sort of plays into the idea that Hamas is totally unwilling to even do the most moderate thing at all,
right.
Which is let kids go to a zoo. I think that you're right, it is what's going to have to happen, and it is going to be the next generation. And unfortunately, if the hardliners win, then these things don't happen. But if more moderate elements can be encouraged and promoted on both sides, I
think that's an important part, the both sides part. So, I've read that younger Israelis are more hardline than a lot of their parents are. And that's largely because they grew up with this complete divide where they didn't have any interaction with the other side. Mm-hmm. Whereas the older generation, even though they were fighting for much of the past 20, 30, 40 years, they did have some normalized relations. And they realized they're not all so bad, and there can be a better way. Whereas if you grow up only seeing them as enemies and never having any normal interactions with them, you harden your stance. So I think these kind of trips are very important, but I think that not just Hamas kids, Palestinian children should go to Israel and see that people in Israel are totally fine and normal, and they're not evil people that we need to kill and throw into the ocean. I think Israeli children should go to Gaza and see how the Palestinians live and realize, wow, they are living under some really, really bad conditions. This isn't right. We need to fix this too.
Right, of course, but they'd be killed or kidnapped if they went. I get what your point is, like the philosophical.
Yeah, which parents are going to volunteer for that one?
Right, like you're not going to send your kid in. They were there, and you know what I mean. So, but I get the overreaching point.
Right. No, there are massive logistical realities that have to be worked out.
Yeah, you want to send one kid in a bulletproof bubble and have him float over the place, I guess.
That Seinfeld bubble boy.
Yeah,
send the
bubble boy. Yeah,
send him in.
Yeah.
But I do think that that any kind of real long-term solution to any kind of situation like that has to be with the younger generation completely seeing and wanting that change and accepting and embracing it and at some point struggling for that.
Right, so totally on board that part of it. So shouldn't this be the type of thing, they're signing all these papers, the UN thing just yesterday, got defeated at the Security Council. The Palestinians are going to ICC Day. All these it's just a lot of paperwork and adults fighting about shit. But shouldn't this be the type of thing that people actually rally around? Like that, to me, like this is so basic. Like, and if they can't even do this, the idea that they call it a peace process is really just because both words have the letter P in it, right? Like, if they can't get kids together, then what real hope is there? Like, what's the glimmer of hope that you can take?
Look, so I mean, as Malcolm correctly pointed out, this trip was at some point approved by Hamas, and then for whatever reasons they unapproved it or disapproved it. And look, I don't understand the motivations behind it, and I would love to get someone from Hamas to explain why they think canceling this is a good idea.
To get Hamas people on the show.
And
they would argue that it's a propaganda. They're going to propaganda. I mean, that's of course.
And maybe it is. I don't know. Okay. So for whatever reason, they decided to not do it. But I'm a little reluctant to just isolate one incident and cast blame on one side or the other, because this situation has so many layers and so much history, and so many instances where each side can rightfully claim that they were victims of massive injustice, that there's often overreaction, right? So it gets really, really difficult.
Right, and that's why I didn't want to make the segment about the whole freaking thing. This was really just like about kids, and if we can't get these freaking kids together, then I don't know what hope we have, but who knows.
So you want just another note of optimism for the new year. This is why you wanted to cover this.
Reality TV, if you've been watching the show, you know that I hate it. And I've got a little good news for you. It is starting to crumble. Yeah, that's right. According to LA Times, ratings for reality TV are totally in the toilet, and we've got a couple examples for you. Fox lost $50 million on Utopia. Did either one of you guys see Utopia by any chance? It was a disaster. It was on for about 3 weeks, about a bunch of people. They tried to create a futuristic civilization together. It was terrible. NBC's The Voice, which was pretty big for a couple seasons, saw its season finale drop nearly 10% this month. Duck Dynasty, that's a show with, it's a bunch of hicks that fuck ducks or something?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The ratings have plunged. TLC canceled Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Now, apparently that wasn't totally because of ratings, but I guess Boo Boo's mom had sex with her brother or something.
No.
Something close to that.
A sex offender.
She was a sex offender. Yeah, close enough. And AMC largely abandoned a 3-year foray into unscripted programming. So I think these are all good signs, because reality TV is just awful, and we've been bludgeoned to death with Kardashians and all this just awful housewife nonsense. As media guys, this has got to feel pretty good, right?
Well, one thing that I find interesting about the articles that talk about how the networks in general are losing their audience to cable, and the cable doesn't do reality as much as the networks do. But and it's true, of course, the networks are declining, and they don't have the market share that they had before. And American Idol is another one that is declining.
Yeah.
But they always talk about as if it's a zero-sum game between the cable viewers and network viewers, and then they might talk about Netflix and the new Amazon coming out with their own show programming. But nobody ever talks about YouTube, which I feel like that's where they're losing a lot of their viewership, is to YouTube, like you people right now.
You good people. Yeah.
And there's not an acknowledgement of it. It's like there's only, and that's because they don't live in the world of young people who, I mean, it used to be when you're a teenager, for a lot of people, you come home from school, you throw it on your backpack, and you turn on TV and you watch TV. Now those kids go up to their room and turn on YouTube. And so where are they factored into this?
Right, so to that point, so let's just stick on that for a sec before we go back to reality TV. To that point, is this also just like a generational thing, sort of like we were talking about in the previous segment on the Middle East, that all the people that are in the business, that control the money, they did grow up throwing their backpack, watching TV after school, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the adults now controlling the money, versus YouTube. Almost anyone under 40 at this point gets almost everything online. So
there's a big disconnect between the decision makers in programming and media and the people who are the consumers of that media. And I mean, I give them a little bit more credit because they don't say the word YouTube, but they do mention how they're losing audiences to the internet.
But I think they're more talking about like Netflix, and they don't acknowledge YouTube as, because like there are shows on YouTube and there are people who subscribe. I don't think they even understand that.
Right, I guess that's the thing that YouTube hasn't crossed yet. Like there isn't the breakout sort of Orange is the New Black or Transparent or something like that. So I guess that's what it probably would take.
YouTube is working on that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the issue of reality shows.
Yeah.
I think there's two basic types. So one is like the it's a game show essentially, right? So like American Idol, even Survivor, those are kind of game shows.
The contests.
Yeah, contests of some sort. And I think there's always a market for that because people want to see that, and that's actually reality. And of course, there's also some editing that goes into it to give it some flavor. So certain contestants are more likable than others.
Yeah.
So we get that, but that's going to be there. The other kind of reality program is just a pure voyeuristic type. So so we want to peek into the Real Housewives. We want to peek into Duck Dynasty, Honey Boo Boo, and a lot of it is just spectacle watching. You know, we want to see something that's fucked up and you know extreme from one to the other range of normal behavior, right?
Yeah.
That to me is going to die, and that mainly because the novelty is worn off, and it's not even reality. It's completely fake.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost more
scripted.
Yeah, it's essentially scripted, but it's just cheaper and with less likable characters, I think. And so I think that's going to be way scaled back.
So that actually might be something that YouTube actually hastened the death of, because once they put webcams in people's rooms, you could actually see reality.
Yeah.
So it sort of made the reality of because it's all scripted, even the unscripted nonsense. But I think you make a good point about sort of the game show aspect versus whatever, because to me, if you want to watch reality TV, I could turn on The Price is Right at any time, and it's always entertaining. I mean, I haven't watched it in God knows how long, but you could always turn it on for 5 minutes, and something sort of fun is happening, and you're seeing real people. And there's something actually, and it's not about that voyeuristic bullshit.
Right, and we all, I mean, look, we all love watching people win stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like at a halftime of a basketball game, if you know, a guy makes a half-court shot and he wins $50,000, who doesn't love, the place goes nuts in the arena and on television. You know, at halftime of bowl games, they have scholarships that people win from throwing footballs or catching footballs. So we love that stuff. We love it, and there's always a market for that.
Right. We love actual reality.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's my question, is that are people becoming more savvy? I don't like to give the American public any credit, as you can see from
not do that
an earlier segment about who we admire.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people are beginning to say, you know, they see the ad for the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like, oh, you know, Kim and her mother getting into a big fight over, who's going to, and we know that is totally phony and made up, and they just completely manufactured for our benefit. And you know, how many times can we watch Real Housewives rip out fake hair extensions? You know, I mean, and getting these terrible fights. Like we've seen that before.
Literally, they went from ripping out hair extensions to ripping off a leg. Did you see that? There was an episode of one of them, Beverly Hills or something, where a woman actually ripped her prosthetic leg off and threw it at somebody. So that may have been the moment at all.
Are you serious?
That may have been the moment it jumped the shark without a leg. But wait, all right. So final thought on this.
So my question is, potentially we are just wising up that this isn't reality.
Yeah.
And if you want to watch scripted shows, there's much better scripted shows than Keeping Up with the Kardashians on Netflix or on Amazon or somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you know, or on AMC, but mostly not on the networks.
But not on the network. So that basically is my final point, that there is actually good TV now. So is that the other thing, that maybe through this horrible 10-year span that we went through with this, that television actually did make a comeback?
I think television is at its finest in its history. I think there are more good shows on television now than ever before, and it shows mainly from HBO, but like Game of Thrones, Boardwalk Empire. You know, these are outstanding shows, and even shows like that I haven't watched, but Walking Dead is very popular. Breaking Bad, Mad Men. There's so many good shows on television that's available both on TV and also on Netflix and Hulu. You watch that. You don't watch this bullshit Honey Boo Boo nonsense, you know?
Yeah. Steve is, by the way, a paid spokesman for AMC and HBO, everybody. So I'll let you know.
I wish. Pay me, please. I'll speak on your behalf.
But watch this. Malcolm's a paid spokesman for the Rubin Report, so tell them what they should do when they're done watching this.
They should subscribe down there and look at this, and then like, and comment below.
That's right. There you go. So there is a fantastic new company called Skiplagged, and of course they are being sued by the big boys, Orbitz and United. And why are they being sued? Let's take a look. So what Skiplag does is they find cheap one-way fares by surfacing weird airline pricing strategies, like pricing a New York to San Francisco Lake Tahoe flight cheaper than a New York to San Francisco flight. So you book all the way through to Tahoe, debark at San Francisco, and walk away from the final leg. Okay, so this is pretty great. And we've done a bunch of stories on these new types of companies that are doing things a little bit differently, away from the big boys like Tesla, Airbnb, Uber, things that people love. And then, of course, the lobbyists and the big companies sue them and fight with them and all that stuff. So this is pretty great, and it was done by a 22-year-old kid. He created this thing. He's now being sued for $75,000. Let's take a look at the lawsuit. So in the lawsuit, United and Orbitz called Skipleg unfair competition and alleged that it's promoting strictly prohibited travel. They want to recoup $75,000 in lost revenue. Okay, so the $75,000 is nothing. But this is just the worst of the worst. This is somebody figuring out something cool. I mean, it's exactly what's happening with Uber and Tesla and Airbnb in all these cities. Somebody figuring out a way around the system to help the marketplace, help the common person. And what happens? The big boys come in.
Yeah.
Give me something. Make me feel good about this.
I want to change my vote and make this guy the most admired man of the year for me. He's my hero.
Yeah,
Forget
and that's a route that you might fly every now and then.
Firefighters or Ebola doctors or whatever. No.
Yeah.
This guy is my hero for taking down the airlines. And I love that, their idea, you know what we got to do? We got to quell this. We got to quash it, before it gets too big. So we'll sue him, and then there'll be news stories about it everywhere. They'll be talking about it on the internet, and his site is down now because he can't keep up with all the traffic. Yeah. So, genius.
Right, okay, so let's just talk about the lawsuit for a second, because that's the stupidest part. So let's just get it out of the way as a former lawyer. So $75,000, they're suing him for nothing just to scare him, right? That's just to scare him, but in actuality, they're doing exactly what you're saying. I hadn't heard about this until the lawsuit.
When you sue someone for unfair competition, that's just basically a catch-all phrase to just say, like, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to sue you for it. There's no specific cause. I'm just going to sue you, right? And unfair competition is very broad, so you can't get thrown out of court. So it could go to trial. And the problem with going to trial is it costs a ton of money. There's no way this kid can possibly afford going to trial and fighting this and winning.
Yeah, he's literally a 22-year-old who did this in his apartment in New York. But also, look, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but to say unfair competition, he's not creating a business that's competing with them. He's just creating sort of a way around
He's just providing information.
He's just that's all he's doing.
And the airlines are like, how dare you inform our customers about different pricing strategies? That is outrageous.
Right.
But I've always wondered about this, because you would book a flight. You'd be looking for a flight from New York, San Francisco, and then you look at another flight that you go to LA, and it goes through San Francisco, but the LA flight is cheaper. Yeah. You're like, what the hell is going on here? And the airlines, I don't know why they are so, they want to continue with this sort of pricing strategy, because I guess the idea is we're going to try. The ideal situation is you have a full flight where no two people pay the same amount. That's like the harmonic convergence for an airline.
Yeah.
But and if they want to come out and explain to the American public why it's to our benefit that nobody can know where their prices come from and how they arrive at them, I'd like them to make that argument in court.
So is that what this is really about? That the airlines want to keep us all in this constant state of having no idea what a price is ever supposed to be, or how early you're supposed to book, or how they arrive at, or anything? I just booked a flight for April from LA to New York, and I think I got a pretty decent price. But I just kept thinking, well, why should I wait longer? There is no rhyme or reason to it, right?
The problem is that airline prices are too cheap, okay? And it's too cheap in the sense that airlines can't make any money. They're losing money all the time. So the good thing is that they're affordable, so most people can afford to travel by air. Maybe not internationally, but domestically they can. The downside is that you have shitty service, and the workers get paid crap. Yep. And you have to make sacrifices constantly. And one of the ways the airlines make more money is to gouge people for first-class tickets who can afford to pay it, and to have these weird, mysterious pricing structures. But they're not even that weird or mysterious, because it's really Southwest. Southwest sets the price. Whatever price they're at, all other airlines follow it and maybe hike it up by like $2. Or they do tricky things like, we're not going to, it's cheaper than Southwest. However, we're going to charge you for bringing anything on the airplane, or charging you whatever for drinks, and a massive change fee if you have to change anything. So there's all these little games they play to make money, and they actually make money on those fees. Without those fees, they'll be massively in the red.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. And what this kid has done is he lifted that layer so you can see underneath it and see what's really happening. It can make informed choices. And the airlines, they don't want you to make informed choices because that means you save money and pay less, which means they lose even more money.
Yeah, their margins are very tight, obviously.
Yeah.
And the fact that they, if you need to go somewhere this week and you have to book that late, then they're gonna gouge you, and there's nothing you can do about it because they all do it.
So is that why no airline has ever come out with a flat rate thing? That they're just flat rate to these cities no matter what? Because I would love that idea. Like even if sometimes you're paying a little bit more, just the idea you don't have to deal with all the nonsense and go to all the sites.
Like Saturn pricing strategy.
Yeah.
Where it's like instead of
or buses, right? If you want to take a bus from here to Las Vegas, it's the same price.
Yeah.
I mean, it's posted. You don't have to do a search for that particular day. It's just posted.
Right. So do we need an Airbnb or Uber of airlines, right? Like, is that the only way to ever sort of fix this or get it to a more sensible rate? I don't know who's going to be flying these things because there's a lot of there aren't as many airplane owners as car owners, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
I want my air travel to be regulated and safe, and I want
You
to
don't
pay a
want just
little
the guy with the plane at the corner of the block? You don't want that guy? All right, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like the idea. You're at the airport and you're like, "Is this my plane? Is this Hamid?"
What do you think? What can we do to get airline prices down? Subscribe and comment down below. Want to get married but don't have a significant other? Well, you are in luck because in Kyoto, Japan, a new company called Circa Travel is offering solo weddings. Yeah, that's right. We've got some more info for you. Japanese luxurious wedding kimono or dress. You can have an on-location photo shoot and an entire experience tour. Here's what it says on the website. You are single and you don't know if you are able to get married and have a wedding ceremony in the near future, but you would like to have some new pictures of yourself in a wedding gown or in a gorgeous bridal kimono now when you are young and beautiful. Steve, I can see this is for you. Or you even believe that you don't really have to get engaged to be able to wear a bridal outfit. Or you're already married but didn't have a proper ceremony with a beautiful dress and find this fact to be quite regretful. Or you did wear a dress, but it was so long ago that you would like to experience it again, or you were too busy with the wedding preparations to enjoy yourself fully during the special day and you're looking for a second chance. Offer yourself an opportunity to experience the feeling of being a princess in the beautiful and charming city of Kyoto. Okay, so just to be very clear, you're not actually marrying yourself. It's not actually a solo wedding, but you get to experience it either again, or it's like a redo or a first time if you don't have somebody yet and you look good and you're young.
So you don't even have a ceremony.
There's no ceremony.
Yeah, you just get dolled up and you get all these pictures taken and you go through the motions that a bride will go through right before the wedding with all the pictures, all that. And then you can have a nice keepsake. Look how beautiful I looked in this outfit and here I am. So I love it. I think it's a great idea, yeah.
Who do you think this appeals to the most? The girl that's, say, 22 and she's like, I'm young and I look good now and I want these pictures now, but I don't have a boyfriend. Or does it appeal more to the one that, like, it all went wrong? You know what I mean?
I would say, well, not it all went wrong, but the reality, I find this interesting because it's like, it's a real modern take on wedding. It's like wedding cosplay, you know?
Right. Yeah, literally,
and so, but when you're actually getting married, the bride is usually fighting with her mother. I mean, it's traditional marriage, fighting with her mother. The flowers aren't right. She's screaming at the caterer and so on and so forth.
The seating chart. Everyone goes nuts about the seating chart.
Yeah. And so you can't really enjoy it. I mean, some people do, but it's difficult to. And also the groom does nothing but ruin weddings. I mean, the groom is just. If the best, ideally the groom is just there, doesn't say much, but often he's like really hungover from the bachelor party, or his degenerate friends are there ruining it or whatever. So the groom is a real hindrance to a good marriage, a good wedding. And so
and a good marriage.
And a good marriage too. So
yeah.
I think these are women who are trying to isolate all the best things about a wedding and cut out all the fat and the unpleasantness.
I think you're overanalyzing it. I think it's just, well, first of all, it costs $2,500, so it's not super cheap.
Right.
But it's also way cheaper than an actual wedding. I just think it's for people who have the money to have a fun experience. I think that's all it is. So whether you've had a good wedding or a bad wedding, or whatever it is, you want to get dolled up and feel special and take all these great pictures. And there are versions of this in the U.S. in the sense that you can get glammed up, and they take pictures of you, right? So the glamour shots is a much scaled down version, but it's similar, right? And I think it appeals more to an older woman who wants to maybe kind of relive her past or redo it in some way. I think or maybe a young girl who wants to just kind of see what it would feel like. But Malcolm is right in the sense that a real wedding, even when everything does go right, it's still stressful. I mean, because you have to make sure that all your guests are happy and everyone's having a good time, and something always gets screwed up. Okay, always. The flowers are not right, the food is wrong. Something goes wrong. So it's stressful, and so at my wedding, everything went pretty much according to plan, and I'm not a stressed out person. I don't really care, but at the same time, I was excited and there was like this nervous energy. It was so I could barely eat, and I remember everyone telling me how good the food was at my wedding, but I was like, I don't recall at all. And then like 6 months later, my parents threw me a second reception in New Jersey for people who couldn't make it out to California, and that one I was so relaxed. I ate like a pig. I got drunk. I danced more. It was great, and there was something liberating about it not being the real thing, but kind of a real thing.
Right. So people put so much pressure on themselves for the weddings and everything. So I get it that this isn't a real wedding, but couldn't you see this being the next step in what happens in America? So so gays are going to get married, fine. Everything's going to be fine. I know. It freaks you people out, but it's going to happen.
It's ruining our marriages because you guys are getting married.
I know. The damage I've already done to your personal relationships. But I really could see this becoming something in America. People marrying themselves. People that say, I don't want to get married. I don't believe in the institution of marriage, or I don't have a significant other, but I want the shit. Because so much of it's about the shit. You want the cookware and the knives and all that other stuff.
If you have a lot of friends,
because your wife's using it to feed you. You just don't see it.
If you have a lot of friends who've gotten married and you spend a lot of money on them, and then you were like, hey, I want some of it to come back to me. What I think is really great about this, if it does go the direction you're talking about, is that another problem that a lot of couples have traditionally is sort of wedding night jitters, like what's going to happen, especially if they have saved themselves for marriage. But if it's just you, if it's just you,
not by choice, I have a feeling.
If it's just you, because you're worried you're not going to be sexually compatible maybe with this person. But if it's just yourself, you already know you're going to have a good time.
You're good to go.
You're going to get something.
You're going to get some, and it's going to go nicely.
That was a very handy tip. All right. On that note, I want to thank Malcolm and Steve. Their Twitterers are right down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And what else are the kids doing now?
They're commenting.
They're commenting and all that good stuff. And Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you next week.